Okay, welcome to the Cowlitz County Board of Health meeting. We're going to start this at 10 o'clock. Thank you for coming. It's a small one. It's summertime, must be. Yeah, it should be a relatively easy meeting. First, old business to review the minutes. Everybody get a copy of the minutes, and I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Okay, so moved. All in favor of approving the minutes from the July meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. Okay. Next order of business, will the whole audience come up to the and talk about proposed fee schedule changes? And she handed out a copy here of the fee schedule. Thanks, Gina.
Good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. So we have a proposed fee schedule in front of you today. It's kind of an odd one, but the fee schedule has to be approved by the Board of Health, but only the elected members vote on the fee schedule. So there's that little caveat. So we have it for you to look at today. Just a little bit of history about why we're bringing it now. We've not raised our fees since 2019, and so we were really looking at, as we're looking at our budget for next year and looking at some different factors, we needed to take a look at our fees with some, increased cost and then spending down some of our fund balance that we had. We had a sort of a peak fund balance of about 1.7 million. And so we've kind of spent that down. Now we're around 200,000 of our fund balance. And so we're looking at other ways. Fees make up about 42% of our budget. That was for 25, or about 42% of our budget is fees. The rest is primarily state grant funding. We have done a lot of work looking at reducing our costs, and we'll continue to do that. But fees are a part of what we have to look at as well. So in general, what we're proposing is about a 5% increase in fees, and this is for our vital record and environmental health related work. There's a little bit of rounding in there, so that's why I say about a 5% increase in the fees. I'll go through and highlight. There are some additions and some changes. You can see all the changes are highlighted in red. There's a little bit of language cleanup, so you just see some of that happening throughout the document, but I'll highlight some of the additions. In vital records, we added a $5 processing fee. So the total for a birth or death certificate would go from $25 to $30. So that's reflected there. We also added a few additional fees for some specialized processing we do with birth and death certificates and records. The state has increased sort of what we have to do when we process those, which increased our time in doing those things, which increased our cost. And so we've added a couple fees in there to help address that. One of the other additions under the water recreation section is the addition of a fee for spray park with recirculation. We've just experienced that in our community with the Catlin Spray Park. It previously was not recirculating, and it now is. And we're so happy to see that up and running again, and people are using that a lot. So
hold it. You say that spray park that we've had for years has been just pumping out fresh water the whole time and going down the drain, not reusing it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep. So that was one addition. Let's see, we are under the drinking water group A and B. This is still on the first page. We are reinstating a fee for group B water systems. We had a group B system until we started receiving some funding from the state. The state funding has decreased, and so we're reinstating that fee. The previous fee was around $240. We're proposing a $100 fee. We do still get some state funding, so we're just looking for to offset some of that cost there. Let's see. More language. We added, let's see, I'm jumping all the way to page 5 on other on-site wastewater. We added, we have always had a fee for our work with licensing OSS professionals. What we've done here is separate out a smaller renewal fee and then added a slightly higher either new or reinstatement fee. There's extra work that's done if someone drops off as a professional, and then we do some work taking them off of our the list we provide customers and our website and things like that. So there's a little additional work that's done if someone comes off the list and then goes back on. And so we have a lower renewal fee and then are proposing a either new or reinstated fee, just slightly higher. Hopefully people just renew. That keeps their costs a little down.
What's late? How many days?
So they are to renew each year at the first of the year. And so prior to the end of the year would be their time to renew. And then it expires at the end of the year.
But is there some kind of a grace period before the 50% fee is? Or that's it?
Are you talking about
You're just saying there was a renewal fee of 50% if you're late, and I'm just wondering how late. If you're 1 day late, you pay 50% more?
So with the OSS professional license, there's just a renewal charge of $300. So if you renew before it expires, it's the $300. If you don't renew before then it's considered a new or reinstatement, and then it's $400 is what we're proposing.
Okay.
But the cutoff is December 31st.
Right. That's when their license expires.
Okay.
Because they had how many days prior to December 31st to do it, right?
Yes, 365. For it.
So
Yeah,
on January 1, I could buy 2 years worth of licenses.
Well, I mean, I guess if you wanted to. You
Okay.
could. Okay. There was quite a bit of cleanup in the RV campground section, partly because of some code changes we did a couple of years ago. So we're cleaning up some language there, aligning it with the language in our code. We did add a campground follow-up inspection. So if we have to return and do a follow-up inspection, if there's issues on site at a campground, then we have a fee to help cover that work. And then the other addition under solid waste is we just added some flexibility around solid waste facility permitting options, where if you apply, we're just establishing an option for prorating that fee if they apply partway through the year for a solid waste facility permit. So we just have it separated out there by quarter. So if you apply halfway through the year, you only pay half the permit cost. So those are the additions in terms of new fees. Like I said, kind of in general overall, we're proposing a 5% increase to the fees themselves.
Is there any line item on here that's, say, more than 15% increase?
More than 15?
Yeah, I mean, you
No.
said, okay, so everything's
Yeah,
About 5%. Okay.
yeah.
So everything in red basically reflects a 5% increase.
Yes, as I mentioned, there's a little bit of rounding just to keep some whole numbers in there.
Okay.
Um,
And then looking at the RV campgrounds and then the food handlers, the annual food handlers. I'm just wondering why it seems like the restaurants and food handlers will have a renewal, a late fee, but RV campgrounds won't have a late fee? Why is that? Well, I'm assuming they don't have a late fee because it's crossed out on that last line.
yes.
I'm
let
looking
me-
at page 6,
Mhm.
the bottom of the RV parks campground.
Yes, so some of the code change we did was, it's, what they're applying for is it's not an operating permit, it's an annual application. And so it's just slightly different. So they submit an annual application just to confirm they're still operating as a campground, the number of spaces they have, those kinds of things. And then we go out and we do an inspection when the campground is open and operating to verify the health and sanitation requirements.
I'm just kind of concerned that if, why would a campground not be charged a late fee, but the restaurants would be charged late fees? I just think it's not exactly fair.
No, Carol, do you have any of campgrounds? Seasonality, a lot of the campgrounds are not operating year round, and so maybe a little bit more flexibility there.
Did some of that have to do when we changed that whole campground policy and
We did
what
change.
we did there?
We did make quite a few changes there, and I'd have to look back and kind of comb through the code. But yeah, we're right. It's an application instead of an operating permit. So like a restaurant, they're applying to operate. They have to have a permit to operate.
But the campgrounds do, no? Yeah, just thinking, if there's late fees, and I think late fees are good to have, because, yeah, you guys got to keep organized, and if you have to deal with people being late, somebody's got to pay a little bit for that, but one class of company doing campgrounds has no late fees, and restaurants, they do pay late fees. I think that's not quite fair is all.
When I look at this, I see the RV parks and campgrounds, an application fee. So that fee could be accepted any time of year. So there wouldn't be a late fee associated with an application. But yet for an operating, which the restaurants do, they have to keep going, have to apply by a certain date. Hence, if they're late, they are late, whereas an application can come in at any time. Do I have that
Yeah,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
Because you have all the operating permits scratched out in
Right.
the RV parks and campgrounds.
Yes, and that was part of the change we had with the code change a few years ago, was it switched from an operating permit to an application fee. And a lot of the campgrounds are operating just seasonal, like May through September kind of scenario.
So that there's only temporary campgrounds. There's no permanent campgrounds. So the first 3 categories that are on there, 5813, 5814, 5815, those are not permanent. Those are temporary also.
No, those would be regular permanent campgrounds or seasonal, or, whatever they are as a campground. Temporary campground is different. It would maybe just be like for a special event or something like that, as just a temporary setup. So
Okay.
those first three are established campgrounds.
So they're. Okay, so I'm struggling with also with the no late fee for them because they're year round, but they pay their fees, you're good, but if they're late, then there's no penalty, correct?
So a lot of the campgrounds, the permanent campgrounds, established campgrounds operate seasonally. So a lot of them are just May through September during the summer, nice weather. And they're also doing just an application fee instead of they don't have to have an operating permit like our restaurants do. It's an application that they submit to us confirming their size, their intent to be open and operating. And then we go on site at some point during the time they're open and verify the health and sanitation components.
So just a follow-up question for that. Okay, I get the application process. So
Mhm.
let's say I've applied, I've been approved, I've got this
Mhm.
campground, but I don't have to renew annually or anything, or do I?
Yes, it's an annual application.
Okay, so
Yes.
that explains it. So if it said annual application fee, or as long as we know that that's annual, so the operating isn't, you don't get an ongoing operating, you have to apply every year.
Yes,
Got it.
Just
Thank you.
like the restaurants,
just like the restaurants,
Okay.
yes, but they don't have a late
but we
fee.
changed it from operating fee to an
An application.
application
Okay,
fee.
yeah, that was part of the code change a couple years ago,
Okay.
yes.
Is there a difference though, Gina, between you having to go and inspect a campground and make sure that they have 16 campsites or whatever it is that they tell you, as opposed to just an operating permit, which they just renew? You see, because I'm taking it as an application means they have to reapply for everything to recertify their campground every year. Whereas a business owner, I just have to renew my, business license and it's done.
Operating permit.
Operating permit application. You see what I'm saying? So is there a difference between the process for a campground owner and a restaurateur as to what they have to go through when they fill out either a permit, operating permit, and or an application?
It's just a slightly different requirement. So like a restaurant, they are required to have an operating permit from us to be open, to operate. The campgrounds, when they're, first opening, they go through part of their process with building and planning. And then we look at the health and sanitation pieces of that. And then ongoing, verify the the continued health and sanitation of those sites. So it's just kind of a slightly different requirement there.
And I would bet probably on the application form itself, it says new or renewal.
Yes, yeah, and and if it were a new campground, it would be a different process because they are going through that with building and planning, and then we get roped into that at the appropriate time for certain approvals and whatnot. So yes, yeah. I'm not sure I answered your question totally.
I'm just wondering if there's a different process for an application that you can either review, accept or deny, whereas a continuance on a permit would just be you paid your fee and you keep going. You know what I mean? Do you actually go out and inspect the campsite, say, yeah, we're not going to approve this application?
We don't do it at the time they submit their application because it's on that annual basis. So they're submitting these in December, January. We go out when they're actually open because that's the best way to see how they're taking care of the garbages and those types of things when people are using the campground.
And do you have to do that on a permit for a restaurant?
Yes, yes.
I think one primary difference with campgrounds is sometimes they don't even open. They may not open for the season. And that, like Gina said, the season is generally May through September, but it can vary. Every campground is a little bit different. So if we require them to do this every year in January or May, that may not fit their operating schedule and they may not even be on site and ready to operate. So I think we see a lot of variances with campgrounds.
So if a temporary campground comes back for halfway through the season to get their permit, it's an application fee again, but there's not another inspection to know that everything's up to snuff for them to open?
So a temporary campground is actually going to be something completely different. It's a one-time event. So some large association or group of
Music
people,
festival.
music festival, good example, has a one-time event and they're going to allow people to camp on this giant chunk of acreage. We're going to go out there and approve that site to make sure there's restrooms and trash, but they're only one time. They're not going to reopen next year necessarily. So that's the big difference between those first few you see on the list and then that temporary campground approval. It's just a one-time.
Yeah, I don't want to deal
Event.
with that. I want to deal with those first three on the list. If that campground doesn't open till halfway through the season, and now they come and get another application permit, how do you know that they've got all the facilities working? Do you go and inspect it again? Like you did the first time they opened, brand new? And got roped into that inspection process because of building and planning?
So we will, each time an application is submitted to us, we will go out that year and do an inspection when they're open. So depending on when they've finished their process with building and planning and what that looks like and the timing, we might make a determination about what's appropriate in terms of going out and doing an inspection. We're not going to go out, and verify things in 1 month. And then just because they've turned the application, we may not go out again, but if the timing is really close, but yes, if they've finished and they've become established, they're done with building and planning and are done. And then the next year they turn in an application fee, we will go out that year and do an inspection to verify the health and sanitation is being kept up.
But that next year they bypass building and planning.
Right, because they've been established as, it's similar to a building permit. When you're building, you have to get the building permit to get going. Once you're done and then you're signed off, then you're sort of done unless you do an expansive project. But so it's kind of a similar idea.
So could they theoretically open a campground, get inspected one time and go for 10 years without being inspected ever again?
No. No, they'll submit an application each year to operate. And if we don't hear from a campground we know operated last year, we'll reach out and see what's going on, if they're open, if they're not, and work with them on that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, on this type of thing with the Board of Health, we're just gonna vote for a recommendation that will go over to the Board of Commissioners to give it the approval. I hate to increase any kind of fees and taxes, but is 5%, is that just randomly chosen or is that just based on your costs are going up or?
Yeah, we have done a lot of work looking at our budget for next year and we will have some more work to do. But so we wanted to propose a 5% increase to help with what we're looking at with our budget. I do think the Board of Health does vote and it's an official vote. It's not necessarily a recommendation that goes to the commissioners. It's really a different way they have it set up here with this new Board of Health structure because, they specify that just the elected members vote on it, but it has to be voted in the Board of Health. So it is a little bit different in that.
So I'd call a vote for just the commissioners to vote on, okay?
And I would like to add, Mr. Chair, to your point, I agree with you. I don't like fees and increased taxes. But these haven't been increased since 2019.
Yeah.
And for fiscal responsibility, I think it's better to do small increments as needed as opposed to, hey, we haven't done this for 12 years and now here's a 20% increase.
Mhm.
I think it's better to do it this way, and I do appreciate your looking at cutting costs and things and not just relying solely on this to help your budget.
Plus, they've been using fund balance. You've gone from 1.7 million down to 200,000, so you can only do that for so long.
Yeah.
All right, so any further discussion on that? Questions? Well, let's propose it to propose a vote for the elected members of the Board of Health of passing this new fee schedule as proposed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve, did you say?
Aye.
Yeah, okay, it passed. Okay, unanimously passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's a good point. It hasn't been raised since 2019, so yeah, 5% reasonable. Okay, moving on. Thank you very much that's a lot of work. I'm sure going through each one of those lines. Okay, so now we move on to the next business. We've got a little bit of housekeeping. I spoke with our legal department, the county lawyers, and there's been some more changes on the state about the Board of Health, and it's a very minor change. There's an extra sheet that you all should have got. Basically, I'll summarize what they said is the new legislation changes that the tribe itself gets to select its tribal member. Previously, it was done out of Washington, D.C. So to change for this in our Board of Health bylaws, Article 3 membership, Section C, it currently reads as one member of the Board of Health shall be appointed by the American Indian Health Commission, consistent with RCW, and is a member of the Cowlitz local Indian tribe. I put below here is to change that is one tribal representative member of the Board of Health shall be appointed by the Cowlitz Indian tribe, consistent with the RCW. So it's just a minor change. I'll throw that out there. If somebody want to entertain that to change the bylaws to this new proposed.
I so move.
Okay. Karen proposes that we change it to the one that's listed there. All in favor of that change, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No, it passed. Okay, good deal. We're keeping up with the lawyers. Actually, he was surprised that I showed it to him. He said, "Oh yeah, I was going to get to that." So we're good. Okay, I guess that we really don't have a whole lot today on that. I wanted to mention just two things, and since Dr. Craig, I don't want you to sit here for nothing. So I just heard, it's funny, driving here on the radio that bat, I think it was the bat that you were talking about, this is on the radio news, said that there was a bat came into somebody's house. They're not sure if it was bitten, and someone from the HHS department, I don't remember the girl's name, but they quoted her, said that they're not sure if they should treat the patient or not. And to me, that sounded funny to be on the radio anyways. And
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. So yeah, Steve Krager, health officer for Cowlitz County. Bats, I think we talked about rabies a little bit ago. And there's always a unique situation, I feel like. And every time we get a call where someone, is worried about a bat exposure, we have our public health nurses do an interview. And I can tell you there's a billion different scenarios that happen. Sometimes it's someone wakes up with a bat in their bedroom, right? And that's a little bit concerning because bat bites can be very small can be unnoticeable. And so if you were sleeping and bit, you may not have realized it. Sometimes it's people that just found a bat and they're concerned. What do we do? Sometimes it's, the bat ran into me and I'm not sure if I got bit. So these are all kind of scenarios that come up. I will say in that specific case, I won't go into like all the details, but sometimes it's just hard to know exactly what happened. Most of the time when we look at whether an exposure occurred, did someone like handle the bat? Were they wearing gloves? Did it hit? Sometimes a bat will just kind of like run into you and it's hard to know what occurred. Were they wearing clothing? Was it exposed? So we go through all of those questions. Sometimes it's like, okay, I was asleep, or I was asleep and I had a few drinks, right? And then, another reason to be a little bit more concerned that they may not wake up, with a bat. Or they have some other, medical disorder that makes them sleep more soundly. All of these things, we kind of go into details and try to figure out. And sometimes it's just a little bit unclear. If it seems to us through that interview that exposure is unlikely, and exposure means a bat bit someone, or like a bat's saliva somehow got in your mouth or your eye. Those are really the only ways that rabies can be transmitted, at least through a bat. Veterinarians have other, exposures if they're dissecting or something like that. But for regular people, those are the main ways. So if there is concern, we always try to test that bat. We'll send it to the Washington State Public Health Lab, and they test the brain and usually get an answer within a day or two of whether the bat had rabies or not. It's an important kind of timeline because we can decide whether to offer treatment or not, or recommend treatment, I would say, because we don't carry it. And it's actually okay to wait a couple of days. So sometimes we can keep people from having to get treated for rabies. We get the test result back in time. Let's see. Sometimes we're pretty very confident that no, skin bite occurred or other type of exposure that would be concerning. And so we don't necessarily recommend that the bat is tested at that point. People can decide to still send their bat for testing or the bat that they have for testing. And sometimes that occurs, and that can cause confusion if that bat tests positive for rabies, because then it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious, or maybe that makes people a little bit more worried. So these are all the scenarios that come up. It's a little bit tough. We try not to get into all the details of, what happens in each case. But generally, when we do have a couple things, when we do have a bat that tests positive, that gets reported to the state puts it on their website, and we just want people to be aware that happened. So that's why we put a press release out. And to us, it's also just a good reminder that, there are bats that carry rabies. And that's in the United States, it's the main way that rabies is transmitted. It's very rare, but it does happen sometimes. So that's a long-winded way to answer your question. I hope that helps.
So the report said that HHS wasn't sure whether the person should be treated, but what you're saying is they're waiting for a test probably.
Yeah, so it's either, we're either waiting for the test, or if there's sometimes, times where we're not certain that we're going to get a test result back in time, or the exposure was concerning enough that we would recommend, treatment at that point. I'm usually pretty cautious with rabies, obviously, just because it's a death sentence if you end up contracting it. But at the same time, there are scenarios where it seems so unlikely that a exposure could have occurred. And, it's expensive. The rabies shots are expensive, they're painful. It's just, if I'm confident enough, usually I will say, if I'm confident enough that exposure did not occur, I don't want to subject people to that if we can avoid it. Yeah.
So what's the timeline? Like, I wake up with a bat in my bedroom, day 0 today.
Yeah.
And you don't know if I've been bitten or not. You send the bat off, and how many days are we marching down the road to get results back from the bat versus how many days do I have to decide to get
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
treatment?
good
That's a
question.
great question. So usually testing is pretty quick, a day or two, and a weekend can throw things off there, right? So it might be up to 3 days. Rabies, there's a large window of when it can kind of present itself. And the guidance from the CDC and WHO is if you haven't had symptoms of rabies, you can still get treated. So it's better to do it as soon as possible. But there is a pretty large window, and most of the time, rabies symptoms don't show up until after 2 weeks. So it's a gray area. We're trying to do it as soon as possible, but we also have a little bit of time.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for
Of
that. It
course.
was just kind of funny how I heard it right on
Yeah.
the way to the meeting.
Yeah, we got some questions from the news about that. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any?
I just want to comment, Dr. Krager, on your comments on the the air toxicity and the air pollution based on industry. I thought you did a very good job, and it wasn't, you didn't really fall into the category of, oh my gosh, everybody's going to die because of this. I thought you did. You represented Cowlitz County well, and I appreciated your remarks in that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, that's a difficult topic. We don't, at the department, do a lot of work around that. So I have a little bit of knowledge, but that was kind of a tricky one to answer.
Well,
Yeah.
and I got the impression from when I was being interviewed also that they were really trying to make a big deal out of it. And between your remarks and mine, I don't think they were able to get what they wanted. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
Was that at the air pollution board?
Yeah.
Since you bring that up, I wanted to just say I've had it in me, and I've talked to one state senator about it, and they just kind of blew me off. But we are in this area of America, we have a lot of good, clean water, hydro energy. And PUD talks about it. Everybody talks about how good and clean our energy is. But down on industrial, there is a plant there that makes a lot of noise. Everybody drives by it and hears it and sees it. And I happen to have a friend who worked on there. And this is a gas burning plant that takes gas, oil or gasoline or natural gas, I'm not sure what it is, burns it to heat up water to turn a steam turbine to create electricity. So here we are right on the side of the river. We have all this electricity, and we don't need this electricity to be burning gas and polluting our local environment. And I find out that plant is selling all that electricity to California. So California gets carbon credits, which is a big scheme, by saying that they're not polluting. But the fact is that us here in Cowlitz County, who don't need that power, we have clean power, we are breathing that exhaust. And I thought that was, to me, it's a little appalling, but speaking with our old Commissioner Arn, it's legal. Just wanted to bring that up, that I don't think that it's fair that we are breathing the pollution for California's benefit, but we are. And silence again. Okay, well, I'm not going to bring that one up. I won't tell you my views on fireworks either then. Anybody have anything else to add? Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll close this meeting early at 10:40, adjourned.